gotta meet Andy, who is the greatest political philosopher in the history of hoarders.
I believe we're living in a communist, dictator, Nazism ship. And you want to know something? I believe the city spies on everybody with drones.
Well, he certainly checked all the boxes, but as crazy as Andy might seem, his episode goes beyond the exposition of a sad, disastrous living situation that requires an immediate cleanup, and deep into the encapsulation of the most important issue that everyone faces: the scope and limits of individual freedom and how we should and shouldn't be able to live our lives. And what better way to examine that than through the lens of compulsive hoarding disorder, an interwoven mess of desires, mental illness, and a spider web of consequences to the innocent, so complicated that the state feels compelled to intervene. When does a collection become a dangerous hoard, and how exactly do kids, dogs, neighbors, and governments fit in with all that? So crack open your Compton lock, pull up a dumpster, and climb onto the intellectual hoard that is the unseen. First, you need to know the situation here. Andy and Becky Otter live in a small city in Snohomish County, Washington, 35 miles above Seattle. It's a decent place to live. Relative to Washington and the whole of the U.S., it's got a reasonably low crime rate. Now, you may be a collector and you may even have way too many possessions, but Andy and Becky have 250 tons of stuff. That's 500,000 pounds inside and outside their house. They think that it's really not a big deal to climb over it all every day.
I consider myself having a good sense of balance, like a mountain goat.
All right, well, how do you prepare food?
I cook in my frying pan in my bathroom.
Okay, Andy's happy with toilet bacon, but his daughter Amanda, who grew up in the hoarded house, she has concerns.
Can't really wash your hands, can't really wash any dishes, and I think that's just absurd.
You're starting to get the picture here. I wouldn't want to live like this, but they do. And if they're happy, who are we to intrude? Well, it's not that simple, and their daughter-in-law sums up the problem.
They tell me it's their choice, and it may be, but nobody should have to live like that.
There are clear health and safety issues in this house, but the problem here is that it's not just Andy and Becky. Russ, Andy's son, thinks Amanda's development was affected by their hoarding.
I believe Amanda is scarred. I also believe that she doesn't know that.
Well, she knows enough to shoot a hopeful message to kids in a similar situation.
If I have advice for any kids that have hoarding parents, I guess you're gonna have to tough it out, and hopefully you can make a better life for yourself once you move out on your own and everything.
To what extent should Amanda be free from the effects of Andy's and Becky's lifestyle? Where do we draw the line on how much harm they can cause their own child, even if it curtails their freedom? Andy claims to have 2 other kids that Marysville stole from him.
I had 2 kids, 4-legged kids. They were family.
The cages the dogs were in were small, narrow cages, and they were buried by garbage.
You don't keep children in kennels with urine and feces up to 4 inches.
Their dogs were removed by the city, and Andy and Becky faced animal cruelty charges. You'd think it would be obvious to them that they were doing harm to their real children and their dog children, but they're beyond defiant.
I could end up in jail, and I don't give a damn they put me in jail, because if they kill me off, oh, well, they have a lot of people on their ass.
Yes, Andy, history will admit you into that pantheon of politically motivated assassinations. JFK, RFK, Gandhi, Rabin, and hoarder Andy from Marysville. But look, local governments can deal with difficult situations really badly. That's how you get a killdozer. Marysville, though, is doing a pretty good job. John Naring was the mayor back in season 10, and he's still the mayor, and he's got a nuanced take on individual rights.
I'm a big property rights mayor, but property rights extend to the community as well. So we as a team have been working to help the Otters voluntarily clean this up for several years now.
And Sergeant Davis should at least be a candidate for beatification for his calmness and tolerance. It's shocking what he puts up with.
Do I hate Cop Davis? You damn right I hate Cop Davis. What the hell have you been doing besides harassing me?
I'm not trying to harass you, Andy.
The hell you aren't.
I'm really just trying to help.
You've hurt me like hell.
What do you mean by that?
You took my 2 kids away from me.
Is there something I can help you with today, Andy?
You can help me by getting the hell out of here.
So look, here's the rundown of conflicts. Andy and Becky want to be free to live how they want, while Amanda needed to grow up free from hoarding. 2 dogs need freedom from abusive conditions and their own freedom to thrive. Russ and his wife feel a responsibility to keep Andy and Becky healthy, even if that restricts their freedom. The surrounding neighbors want to be free from rat infestations and threats to their property values. The city wants to protect everybody within their purview, eliminate public health threats, make it easy to deliver emergency services like fire and medical, and really to stop wasting public funds by enabling this couple's damaging way of life.
I've tried to calculate a dollar value to the resources that we've utilized on the Otters, and I think a very conservative number would be around $100,000 in just labor.
When Andy and Becky's freedom come at a cost to innocent parties, we've got a problem.
We're out of patience. We can't continue to spend taxpayer money having code enforcement officers go out over and over again and seek voluntary compliance. It's been going on for years now.
Well, something's got to give. And hey, if you like thinking about really complex real-life scenarios like this one, do a little like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. On October 31st, 1958, Isaiah Berlin delivered a lecture at Oxford called 2 Concepts of Liberty. He defined how freedom works. He laid out negative liberty, which is the freedom from obstacles, obstructions, coercion, to do or be what one wants to do or be without interference from other persons. Andy is a strong proponent of negative liberty, what we can think of as freedom from, and he feels that his freedom has been violated.
You damn right. I don't give a damn. I do not want people telling me I have to live like them. This damn communist city says I gotta live the way they tell me to live. And I refuse to do that.
Okay.
I don't want nothing to do with these commies, these Nazis here at all.
Well,
They want to dictate to you. They want to tell you how to live. Oh no, no, that's wrong.
It's perfectly reasonable to want what Andy wants, not to be constrained by force or meddling, regardless of whether the other party has good intentions. He doesn't want to be controlled, and most of us don't want to be either. Andy also wants an absolute degree of Berlin's positive freedom, the freedom to. He wants total control of himself, which is also pretty reasonable. But what Andy and Becky refuse to acknowledge, the reason their family is strained, their neighbors despise them, and the city is intervening, is that other people exist, and those people operate within their own 2 concepts of liberty. The positive freedom that drives Andy to throw trash in his backyard collides with his neighbor's negative freedom.
I'm Sarah. Andy and Becky are my backyard neighbors. It's piles of junk, and there's open things of dog food, which is created, and rat infestation.
I do not have a rat problem here.
I've literally been changing laundry over and had one come through the dog door.
She's a damn liar.
And to what degree does the city of Marysville have a right to tell Andy what he can and can't do? Well, that depends on who you ask. Hector Urquhart wrote in 1860 that one man's rubbish may be another's treasure. He was the first to use the phrase. If it's Jean-Jacques Rousseau, he's okay with the city cracking down. For him, individual freedom is achieved within the confines of collective control of the general will. Murray Rothbard might liken the rat infestation to his take on air pollution being a violation of all our property rights. The polluter sends unwanted and unbidden pollutants, from smoke to nuclear radiation to sulfur oxides, through the air and into the lungs of innocent victims. But are the rats truly an extension of Andy's property? He doesn't own them. So how much responsibility does he have for just creating the conditions that might attract them? John Locke would take Andy to task for not realizing that, being all equal and independent, no one ought to harm another in his life, liberty, or possessions. And Carl Jung would remind Andy that the home is the mirror of the mind. And a guy like Matt Kibbe would tell everyone in Marysville, hey, don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. That's the philosophical push and pull in Hoarders, figuring out who's hurting who. Deciding to what degree we should be able to protect others from harm and themselves, and whether our obligations to them restrict their freedoms too much. It's the real-life example of that classic paradox.
This is what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
Kids start out with very little negative liberty, and as they get older, they push back, and so do their parents. You know what that's like. What about your right to own a gun? Say an AR-15. Do you have an absolute right to defend yourself the way you want? Or does society get to decide what's in the collective best interest in an attempt to curtail school shootings? What about Leah Thomas's right to swim versus Riley Gaines' freedom from unfair competition? Every day our desires bounce around a particle accelerator of everyone's positive and negative liberties, all moving at different speeds and energies. And occasionally fusion can go thermonuclear. And that is the hidden genius of Hoarders. The answers aren't ever clear or easy. And the concept of liberty, what it is, what it isn't, and what it should be, is so beautifully and tragically complex that it makes Andy and Becky's $500,000 hoard of garbage the second messiest thing in the world.